Hello people of BookTube, Megan here, and time for another video. Today I am doing a very much needed unhaul. It has been a hot minute since I've done an unhaul. I'm pretty sure it's been about a year. I believe my last unhaul was in the fall of last year, I think. Maybe I did one sooner, I can't remember. Anyway, I got a lot of books here, so let's just get right into it. So first I have Nobody's Princess by Esther Fresner, I think. Not sure how to say her last name, but yeah, I did enjoy this book, but not enough to either want to keep reading the series or to hold on to this. Like, it was an entertaining read, but nothing that I can see myself rereading in the future, and so away it goes. And before I get much further, I'm probably not going to talk too much about each individual book because there's a lot of books here. I don't want this to be an hour video, so yeah. Next I have A Whole New World by Liz Branswell. This I kind of felt overall meh about, and I just don't have enough room in this apartment to keep books I've felt meh about, so unhauling it and bringing it to the used bookstore for someone else to hopefully enjoy more than I did. Next I have Would Be Witch by Kimberly Frost. This I think I DNF'd. I honestly can't remember it, but I remember I just didn't have a whole lot of interest. The premise sounded really cool, but I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it or if it just wasn't for me. Either way, I don't think I finished it. Don't think I'm ever gonna finish it, so away it goes. Similar to the last book, I have Blood Angel by Justine Musk. I don't think I got far into this at all before I lost interest. Most of this year I've been doing this thing where if a book doesn't capture my interest within the first 50 to 70 pages, sometimes I'll even push it to like 100 pages, I just say screw it and don't bother. Life is short, far too short to be reading books that you're just not getting into, especially given how many books I have on my overall TBR. So, DNF'd it. Next I have Fantasy Lover by, I'm totally gonna butcher her name, Sherry Lynn Kenyon. I did enjoy this quite a bit, but limited shelf space. I'm not sure if I enjoyed it enough to want to keep it. Just not really sure if it's something I'm gonna reread. So, gonna bite the bullet, getting rid of it. This one hurts me a bit to give up, but lack of shelf space. Not sure if I'm gonna reread it anytime soon, but I've very thoroughly enjoyed the story and the characters, and that is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I don't have the space to keep it. And even if I did, like I said, I'm not sure if this is going to be something I'm going to pick up to reread anytime soon, because life. And I don't have the space. And even if I did, instead of seeing it gathering dust waiting for my next reread, I'd rather see it in someone else's hands being enjoyed. So, to the used bookstore it will be going. As a lot of you may have guessed by now, there is a trend. A lot of these books are either books I've been kind of meh about, or I just liked but don't see myself rereading. So you know what? If it's under that category now, I'm just not gonna say anything. So yeah, next on my list is The Siren by Kara Cass, and just gotta make room. So onto the unhaul pile it goes. Next I have World War Z by Max Brooks. Every once in a while I do feel the dire need to reread this. It's been years since I originally read it, and just rereading it didn't bring up as much hype as it did before. I don't know if it's because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, but I didn't enjoy it as much. So, less likely to read it than I would otherwise. You know, it's still an interesting book. I didn't hate it. Just feel the need to say that. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I remember liking it. So, I don't think that's gonna change. So, unhauling it. Alright, next I have White Stag by Cara Barbieri. I hope I said her last name right. yeah, I did enjoy this book. It definitely was a bit darker than I tend to read. I did enjoy this book, but I don't feel I enjoyed it enough to warrant keeping it or to continue on with the series. I believe this is a duology, I think. But by the time I finished it, I was just kind of like, okay. That was a thing. I liked it, but just a thing. It wasn't for me. And yeah, time to give it up. Next, I have Skin Deep by Mark DeFranco. I didn't get far into this book before I'm like, yeah, no, this is just gonna drag for me. Just DNF it. I think maybe like within the first 50 pages, I'm like, yeah, no, not feeling it. So DNFing it and unhauling it. Next, I have Mark of the Demon by Diana Rowland, and I just kind of felt overall meh about this book. I was entertained enough to want to keep reading it, but not so entertained that I felt the dire need to continue with the series or hold on to this. So, unhauling. Next I have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and I started off really enjoying this book. Really drew me in. I was very curious, but I felt as the book went on, my interest waned a bit, and I just started feeling kind of meh. By the time I finished it, I was just kind of meh. You know, it's just kind of felt like, well, that was a thing. Okay, moving on. I don't know, by the time we got to like The Hazelwood, I was just kind of like, eh. But I continued on anyway and finished, and just, I don't feel I got any further dragged in than that at that point. So, yeah, definitely not something I plan to pick up and reread, so onto the pile it goes. Next, I have Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh, and this overall book I was meh about. The concepts and synopsis sounded super interesting, but throughout the whole book, I didn't feel my attention was fully grabbed. It was a decent read, but not enough for me to want to read the sequel or to hold on to this, which is really sad because I was looking forward to reading this. I don't regret reading it, but it was just meh. Next, I have 4 books. I'm unhauling them together because they're by the same author. The Liar's Key, The Prince of Fools, The Wheel of Alzheim, and Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Trying to get them all in there for you. But I heard some things about this author that he's not the best, and I don't know if I want to support someone like that. It's even secondhandly through the used bookstore, which is where I got these. But yeah, not sure how I feel about that, so. And then I went and reread the synopsises after hearing he wasn't the best of people. And I don't know if that just little bit of information just kind of spoiled things for me, or if I genuinely lost interest in reading these books. But just, I felt no need to pick them up since then, so I am unhauling them. Next, I have Cursed by S.J. West. This book has been on my bookshelf forever, and when I finally went to pick it up and read it, I just couldn't get into it. The synopsis sounded cool, but I don't know if it was just the writing style or just how things are paced or whatever, but I just couldn't get into it. So, it's going to the used bookstore. Next, I have Off the Page by Jodi Picoult and Samantha Van Leer. This book has been on my bookshelf forever, and I've just never reached for it. I've never thought of reaching for it. I've always forgotten it was on my shelf until I looked at my shelf. And I feel if that's not a sign that I'm not going to pick up a book at all, nothing is. So, it is going to a new home now. And I just saw this after doing my last bit. I have Between the Lines by Jodi Picoult and Samantha Van Leer. For the same reason as Off the Page, this just, I haven't reached for it. I haven't thought of it. I forgot it was on my shelf unless I looked at it. So, like I said, that's a sign that I'm likely not going to ever read it. So, off it goes. Next, I have Sea Witch by Virginia Cantra. This, was an interesting read. It was alright. Nothing I'd gush about, but it was entertaining enough for me to keep reading it and finish it. not so interesting that I felt the need to continue on with the other books in the series. So it's going to the unhaul pile. Next I have Nightlife by Caitlin Kitteridge. And like several other books on this list, read it, enjoyed it enough to finish it, but not enough to want to continue on with the series. So, unhaul pile. Next I have Dragon's Eye by James A. Hetley. I vaguely remember reading this, or something like this, years ago. Tried to pick this up recently and just, for some reason or another, wasn't able to get that far into it. So, unhaul. Next is something I say with a heavy heart. It is The Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson. This is a book that one of my best friends has recommended to me a while ago. We both have very similar reading tastes. Usually what either of us really likes, the other really likes. And just, this has been sitting on my shelf for so long, untouched. Haven't even thought of touching it anytime soon. So, unfortunately, I'm probably never going to get to it. And I feel bad having it just sitting there gathering dust, never to be read. So hopefully it can go off and find a home with someone who will actually read it. This is making like middle school Megan scream. Next I have the first 4 books in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants series. I reread it recently and just wasn't as great as I remember it being. A lot of the characters annoyed me, a lot of the choices they made annoyed me. I don't know if that's because I'm an adult now, very likely is. Just didn't enjoy it as much, and I don't want to keep books that I didn't really enjoy. So these are going to the used bookstore. Next, I have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I've had this book on my shelf since it was released. Haven't made any move to pick it up yet. I might still read it in the future, but just, I can't warrant keeping this on my shelf any longer. Like, it came out in, 2017? It's 2020. Haven't made any move to pick it up in 3 years. It's time to just let it go. And I feel bad because I really did like The Daughter of Smoke and Bone, but just, I don't have space on my bookshelf. So it's off to find a new home. Next I have Teen Idol by Meg Cabot. This is something that I read years ago, liked, and wanted to revisit, and just didn't live up to the hype that I remember it having. So, unhauling it. Next I have I Dream of Dragons by Ashlyn Chase. I like this book. I mean, Irish Dragons, what's not to like? But just, while I enjoyed it, I don't feel I enjoyed it enough to warrant keeping. And I have really no drive to finish the rest of the series. I think there's a total of 3 books, including this one. It just, yeah, time to unhaul. Next I have Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. I like this book. For a contemporary, I found myself entertained. For those who don't know, I'm not really big into contemporary, never really have been. There's only been a handful of contemporary books that I've really, really enjoyed. But yeah, I enjoyed this one, but I'm not sure if I enjoyed it enough to warrant keeping. So yeah, onto the unhaul pile. Alright, next I got The Other Twin by Hunter Morgan. This is kind of like the first true crime-ish book I have read. Would it be considered true crime? I'm not sure. But I have been very into true crime lately, watching a lot of YouTube and starting to watch more documentaries. So I think that's what kind of drew me to pick this up. But, it was just kind of an alright read. The ending I was kind of on. So, and there was just some things in here that felt uncomfortable for me. I don't care if this is kind of a spoiler at this point. There were 2 characters that were cross-dressing in this. I don't know if they were just cross-dressing or if they were meant to be trans, but just how they were described, I wasn't into it. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't like that. So, into the unhaul pile it goes. Now I have Sea Witch by Sarah Ketting. I thought this was an interesting take on kind of like a little mermaid retelling. I enjoyed it. It was interesting. I liked how it was played out. But I can't see myself rereading it in the near future, so I'm going to be unhauling it. And the last 4 books on this list are part of the same series, and it is Embrace the Night, Curse the Dawn, Hunt the Moon, and Touch the Dark by Karen Chase, and these are all part of the Cassie Palmer series, and they are in no particular order, just the order I had them stacked up in. I tried reading the first book, I don't know, couldn't get into it, which is sad because the synopsis sounded cool, but just wasn't getting into it, and no sense in keeping all 4 of these books, letting them gather dust if I wasn't going to read them. So, onto the unhaul pile. Holy heck, that was a lot of books. That's like 2 reasonable shopping bags worth of books right there. Holy heck. So yeah, those are a bunch of books that I am unhauling. If anyone's favorites were in there, I'm sorry. There's nothing wrong with liking any of these books, but they just weren't for me. Don't feel like keeping them. And yeah, they are on their way to hopefully a new home into someone's hands who will appreciate them much more than I can right now. So yeah, that's it for this video, and I hope to see you guys next time.